Welcome to Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. On this podcast, we journey through the devastating experience of the death of a child. Grief is seldom discussed openly in our culture, and the death of a child makes people feel even more uncomfortable. We approach the topic openly and honestly, speaking to people who have lost loved ones and experts who help care for them. Whether you are a parent experiencing loss or someone who wants to support another going through this tragedy, this podcast strives to offer hope and help.
Welcome to episode 332 of Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. I'm Marcy Larson, Andy's mom. Today, I have the pleasure to reintroduce you to Luna. Luna is Hunter's mom, and Luna was on a long time ago. She was on way back in episode number 57. And she was less than 2 months into her grief journey after losing Hunter. I have to say, Luna has been one that has stuck with me for all of these years since I've spoken to her. I've wondered what was going on in her life. And recently she reached out to me. She reached out to me telling me about a new and amazing book that she had written. It's truly just a book of love, and it felt sacred even reading it. I really did enjoy reading it, and I know you will too, and we'll talk quite a bit about that in the episode. She also said that if I was willing, she would love to come back on, and I was so excited to do so because, again, she was so fresh in her grief journey, but she was so remarkable, and that she did not seem to fear grief even then, and really, really allowed herself to fully lament, and I admired that about her. So I was excited to have her back on the show, and I know you will enjoy it too. Now on to the sponsor for this week's episode. So you may remember a few weeks ago, I had a donation. Someone donated for 2 episodes in honor of their son. So this is the first episode we had, so it would land right between the birthday and Heaven Day for Christian. But this is the second episode that they sponsored. Again, Christian's mom wrote, "Hi, Marcy. My husband and I would like to sponsor 2 episodes in honor of our son, Christian. One for his birthday on December 7th. He would have been turning 15. And one for his first heavenly anniversary on December 16th. This is our first birthday without him, and it's a hard month for our family. Christian was an amazing son, kind-hearted, funny, and full of light. We miss his presence, his voice, and his sweet face every single day. Your podcast has brought us comfort since he passed, and I'm grateful for the space you create for us. Please also thank Eric for all he does behind the scenes, and thank you to all the bereaved parents who share their beautiful children with all of us. Their stories matter, and they help us feel less alone." This is from Betty and Miguel. So thank you so much, Betty and Miguel. And thank you for thanking Eric as well, my treasurer now, who has a little more responsibility now that we have added this donation compartment, or department, I should say. If you would like to donate in an episode or 2 in honor of your child or another loved one, you can go to the andysmom.com website and go to the donate page, and there you will get instructions on how to donate. But thank you again so much for that. It just means so, so much to me. Also, if you want to share your story, you can write to me at Marcy, M-A-R-C-Y, at andysmom.com. I just love hearing from different listeners and hearing about their kids. Right now, though, I just want you to sit back and enjoy listening to Luna, Hunter's mama. Thank you so much, Luna, for coming back on the Always Andy's Mom podcast today.
Such an honor to be here.
Well, it's so funny because you wrote to me a little bit ago. And I can't remember. I feel like you asked if I remembered you or something. And of course I remember you. I think about you really often. I know that might surprise you, but I really honestly do.
I'm curious what impacted you so much.
Well, I'll tell you. So Luna was back on episode number 57. And you were so fresh in your grief. Less than 2 months when I talked to you. And I couldn't believe how open you were to truly feeling the grief. And being open and you didn't seem, and that might not be true, but you didn't seem like you were scared to grieve and scared to truly feel lament. And to me, that had been really scary. And I was just so blown away by the way that you were okay being really, really vulnerable and not being scared by that. Because I felt like I had been scared by those feelings and just being overwhelmed by the grief and feeling like if I start crying now, I feel like I might never stop and just those type of things. And I felt like you didn't have that. And it just blew me away, honestly.
I'd had a lot of other grief before I lost my son.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'd had a lot of practice because my mom had ALS and died of ALS in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of anticipatory grief with that. And then the grief of losing her. And she introduced me to a lot of amazing people who were grief experts, therapists, writers. And that really educated me. So I started going to grief ceremonies and rituals after she died. So that was really, I had opportunities to learn the value of wailing in community, really letting yourself feel it all and learning that, you can't sustain that level of expression for that long. You just run out. And that was kind of the truth. It was like, when you really let yourself sob, it has an endpoint because our bodies can only take so much of it. And just trusting that became sort of a guidepost for me. I just trusted that, this is intense and everything in my body hurts and it will subside. And then it'll come back again. And I mean, here I am 5 years later and Sunday, I was in one of those days where just the whole day I was just sobbing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I couldn't even identify exactly what it was other than I was approaching the holidays and I'm just feeling the ache.
Yeah, right.
And I just, like I said to my wife, I'm like, that's where I am today. And she just held me and we went into it and half an hour later it lifts. And then again, 2 hours later, I read something, I saw a picture, something happened and I was just like sobbing again and just like, I'm just letting it roll through.
Well, I'm just glad that you are open to feeling it though, because that's,
yeah.
And I lost my mom young. I lost my mom when I was 21 years old. I was in college. And I mean, to be honest, I did not grieve that well. I mean, I just didn't. I didn't.
We have such a grief illiterate culture that, the idea that we need to honor our beloved, whoever they are, parent, child, sibling, at any holiday, at a birthday, we need to understand the value of those monumental annual events that we need the opportunity to say, oh, your mom's not here. How is that for you?
Right. Exactly.
How is that?
Exactly.
And without the invitation, the message is just don't talk about it.
Right. Right. So I think that's what really was so overpowering to me about you is I just feel like you just weren't scared of it and you were so open to talk about it. Because I think we first connected via Facebook, right?
Mm-hmm.
Long time ago. And I was just looking at some of the things that you did and you just were blowing me away. So I had you on. It was great. Things have changed a lot for both of us since that time. Right?
Yes, they have.
So, for those who haven't listened to episode 57, which if you haven't, might be a good time to just pause now, go back, listen, come back again. But for those who don't want to do that, I do want you to tell us a little bit about Hunter again, because I would like everybody to kind of know about him, because what an amazing kid. What an amazing kid.
Yeah, he was an only child. He was, I really worked long and hard to conceive him. And so when I finally gave birth at 40 years old at home, it was just a dream come true. It was like something I really, 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 I wanted more than the marriage I had been in, than anything else, the career, everything went except for my pure desire to be a mom. And so he was raised in an environment that was just incredibly, like, he was the center of attention in so many ways. And he had a tribe of women around him. So he was super sensitive, hearted, mischievous, always very mischievous man. And yeah, Hunter was such an empath that he couldn't determine what was his emotional experience and what was the emotional experience of the people around him. And that became increasingly difficult with time. He died at the age of 21 from an accidental overdose of codeine cough syrup.
Yeah.
That was prescribed by an urgent care nurse. And every physician I've ever talked to has said nobody in the right mind should have ever prescribed more than 2 days worth of that, if that.
Yeah, I never prescribe it. Never.
Exactly.
And most people don't anymore. It's unusual.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was malpractice. It was heartbreaking.
Because at the time you were on the podcast, you didn't know that.
At the time, we were waiting for the pathology report. And we had to wait 4 months for that pathology report. So I didn't know if he had gotten into fentanyl. You just don't know,
Yeah, you have no idea.
All I knew was he died in his sleep.
Right.
It's just been such a journey trying to reconcile with that, to deal with the anger and the feelings of, helplessness that come along with a child that was struggling with. He was navigating anxiety with cannabis, and then he was being given codeine-based cough syrup to help him sleep, supposedly. But he became addicted to it, and I didn't know it.
That is so crazy that would be given to somebody to help them sleep, too. I just don't understand it at all. Yeah.
Or why somebody in urgent care thinks it's their job to prescribe a month of something that's so addictive.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. So, yeah. He's inspired a lot. He's been quite a muse since he died. A lot of my creative outpourings have been all just coming out of the love I have for him. So,
yeah, absolutely. So you started writing very soon after Hunter died, correct?
I never stopped writing. I've been writing every day for 30 years.
Okay.
And so I wrote, this is the craziest part. I don't know if this is in the book or not, but I wrote the morning that he died. This is such a bizarre thing. There are so many weird, as you know, because I remember your story about Andy drawing pictures of your family without him in it. And I was just like, whoa. And what I was writing the morning that Hunter died, before I got the phone call that he was unresponsive and my ex was like, I don't know what to do. I was writing a card to my wife I was giving her the Best Wife of the Year award. And I wrote this whole card about how she was the best wife of the year. And then literally 10 minutes later, I get this call and go rushing over, and 2 hours later, my son's dead. And it was like, my wife should have gotten the Wife of the Year award because she was just amazing at being present and all the things that had to go. But she had been a police officer for 20 years. And so she was able to go to that scene at my ex's house and navigate the detective and the police officers and keep them away from us and give us time with Hunter and all the things that most people would never get.
Wow.
Because, it's a crime scene. It's a we don't know how he died scene. And she was so protective and knowledgeable about how to navigate that. And here I am giving her this award before I even knew the extent of it.
Right.
That just still the thought of how much she gave so that I could have that preciousness. And really, it's taken her 5 years to get to her own grief about losing Hunter.
I wondered about that.
Yeah, it's taken her a lot. It's a lot for her to just feel like she deserves to, as a step parent, that she deserves to grieve.
Yeah.
And sometimes we've actually had to do therapy separately so that she could feel like she can really express it without feeling like somehow she's impacting my grief or my space. It's been a really interesting experience.
I imagine that. So you wrote a beautiful book. It is beautiful. I wrote back to you after I started it. I went through the first maybe 50 pages or so, and I wrote back to you and I said, this feels sacred to me, this book. It feels
That was such a beautiful comment.
but it did. It 100% felt so sacred. And I could read that because, so in the book, just to kind of explain to people how it is, it starts off, it's just your writings. And your writings are letters to Hunter that you wrote very, very often. You don't have one for every single day in here. They didn't all make it to the book, but a lot did, especially early on. And you could feel that Amy trying to protect you and comfort you and hold space for you. And you could also feel that she wasn't doing that for herself. She was doing that very much for you. And I could sense that in your writing that you wanted her to open up and let go, but she just didn't feel that she could. She just wanted to protect you.
Right. Yeah. It's so much it's just her personality in so many ways. And that's who she is. She has such guardian sort of energy, protector.
Yeah. It's interesting. You did not have in the book that she is a police officer, but I so see it now. It so makes so much sense to me how she wanted to protect you, because that's what police officers do, right? I mean, serve and protect, right? And that's what she was doing. She was serving and protecting you above all else and not focusing on her. So I got to the end of the book and I did have so much in my mind, like, what about Amy? What's happening with Amy?
Right.
Yeah. So right. I'm glad to have a little bit of kind of information that she is turning to get some more help for herself a little too.
Yeah. And I mean, she was in the middle of graduate school when Hunter died. She was getting a degree in counseling. And, that was like both a blessing and a real challenge, because here she is in the middle of, trying to deal with this immense amount of grief in the household and her own. And then she has to go through all these classes on, psychology and grief and all the things. Right. So yeah, it was tricky. It was really tricky, but it's also been a blessing because it's given us a lot of, the blessing of her going through this grad program. We both have master's degrees in counseling now. And so it's like it's a language that we share.
Uh-huh.
And we both have just a really deep commitment to personal growth. And so we recognize like, oh, it's time we need to go back to couples therapy. We're having a hard time navigating the grief between us, or we made a big decision to leave Portland. We were living in Portland, Oregon, and we made the decision to completely leave the town that Hunter was born and died in and move all the way across the country. And that was where Amy was from. She was born and raised in Oregon. So it was a very big transition. And I'm from the East Coast. So for me, it was a little bit more like coming home. And for her, it was like pulling up roots and not knowing where she was going.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole transition was a lot of grief, a lot of letting go of communities and our home and places that were familiar. And yet I will tell you that I don't miss it at all. Like I have zero, like I don't even want to go back. I'm just super happy where I am. It's a little bit different for her. And that grieving process is taking a longer period for her to walk through. And I think that's a thing we all have to be aware of as we're partnered with,
mm-hmm.
whether we're partnered with the other parent of the child or a step parent or someone who comes in after you have that ever even knew your child. There's a lot to being in communication about how we grieve differently and we take different roles in that grieving process. And yeah, so there's a lot happening now about just really, for me, really trying to invite her grief into the room. And a lot of times I'm the one taking the lead. I'm the one who's doing like a beautiful annual ritual here in the community where I live, where we create a huge nature mandala with flowers and in honor of Hunter on the day that he died. And we invite everybody to participate with us. And Amy's always there, right there with me, but I'm always the one sort of facilitating it and making it happen. And, gradually that's shifting, but it's still kind of my thing.
So I want you to talk about your grief journey. So obviously when you were on, you were just weeks in, really, really fresh and early. And you did a lot of kind of trips and very intentional things with your grief. So I do want you to talk about that intentionality and how that helped you in where you kind of went on your grief journey. Because I think that would be great for listeners to hear about.
Yeah, and I just want to preface it by saying, I have a fair amount of flexibility because I own my own company.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to name the fact that I know everybody doesn't have that option,
right.
to just, to take off 6 weeks of work or to travel. That, I really understand that not everybody has that.
Right.
For me, it was both going to the grave every day and decorating the grave and making it a place of beauty, going to places like a friend of ours offered a house in Key West that we got to go stay in for 10 days, which was an amazing gift. And so everything I did in that space was still the same, write every morning, meditate every morning. But meditating after your child dies is almost impossible. But I still did it. I still sat, even if it wasn't concentrated mindfulness,
Yeah.
It was still the intention to just try to quiet my mind. But when I was traveling, I would always I was really looking for signs and listening. And when, I'd just be like driving down the road or walking down the road and being like, I'd get this nudge and I'd just be trying to listen to like, which way should I turn? And they're like, turn. And then there's a butterfly. And then I'm like, oh, okay, that must have been right. And then walking, and then there's a cat. And the cat's like the cat that looks just like his cat. I'm just like, okay. And then, and then for me, being outside of my home environment gave me the opportunity to listen in a different way and to, go to the beach in different places or go to the woods and, again, make beauty out of whatever I could find, sticks and leaves and fallen anything. That just became it became almost daily for quite a while practice of how do I make beauty even in this place of just feeling so completely shattered.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then later it became, I went to, after I talked with you, I went to Sedona, and there's a place there called the Salah Care Farm, which is an animal rescue and caring for grieving parents. It's a dual purpose retreat center. And so we went there and we got to hang out with the animals and then meet with their person. And the whole environment is set up for grieving parents, which was beautiful. That was built by Jean Casatori, who wrote the book Bearing the Unbearable.
Okay.
Who also lost a child. And then on that same trip, we went to a wolf sanctuary, and I had this incredible experience with this wolf we were just like nose to nose, and she's just like licking my tears. It was so beautiful. So there's moments like that where it's just feeling this connection with horses or wolves or whatever. Being around animals really made a difference for me. There was just we did some equine therapy, equine coaching together, which was cool. So the two of us trying to navigate our grief with a horse as a companion, as a guide. And that is a whole nother kind of way of experiencing a deeper sense of like, what is happening between us and how do we communicate it about? And the horse just sort of acts it's like a horse is a barometer of truth. The horse really comes towards you if you're really in your truth, and it really goes away and isn't interested if you're not.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so that was very powerful for the two of us. Yeah.
Well, it's very funny because you write a lot about those animal experiences in your book. And I told you before we started recording, I read the book when we were on vacation in St. Kitts. And the other day, it was yesterday, we're sitting on the beach, and all of a sudden there's this huge splash in the water. And I mean, Eric and I did not know what it was, like something had fallen in the water or something. And then pretty soon you see this pelican come out of the water who had caught a fish. Oh. And then I'm like, oh, Luna wrote about a pelican. And I thought, okay. And then the other thing that was really powerful, well, there are two other things. Another one was that you wrote about the hummingbird. So tell the story about the hummingbird. You tell the story about the hummingbird. Okay.
Okay. So 3 days after Hunter died, we had hummingbird feeders outside. And this hummingbird came, and I was just sitting, like, just sobbing, sitting in a chair, just sitting in the sun, just like I couldn't move. And this hummingbird, like, I heard it. I couldn't see it because my eyes were closed. It came up and it just like literally 3 inches away from my head. And it's just like, and then it circled my head and stopped, and circled my head and stopped, and did that 3 times. And I just knew it was Hunter. I knew it was just this very miraculous thing that doesn't happen. And it was just like, and I just sat there, and it's just like, it sort of shifted the grief in my body for a while. It was just like, like awe. It was like, instead of being filled with grief, I was filled with awe.
So we were on our vacation this week.
Okay.
And every morning, every single day, there was a hummingbird on a palm tree outside the condo. Like, we're out on the porch, and it would come up and it would perch, which is weird because you hardly ever see hummingbirds just perched and not flying. Every single day that hummingbird would come. And I remember when my husband's like, I don't even know what that hummingbird is doing because there aren't like big flowers in the palm tree or anything like that. But every single morning that hummingbird came. And then I thought, well, there you go, Luna. There's the hummingbird. And then the last one, if for all, regular listeners of the show, they know that the cardinals are my thing. Cardinals are all the time. I just see cardinals all the time. I see cardinals on special days. I will ask God to send me a cardinal sometimes, like on Andy's birthday, and a cardinal will just fly in front of me. As I come home, not in the wintertime, obviously, not as much, but like a cardinal will fly in front of the car all the time. When we go up north, we feed birds. There are cardinals there. And even in the winter, we have cardinals there. So cardinals are like my thing. And as I'm reading this, so I read about the pelican, I read about the hummingbird, and I thought, if she's got a cardinal story in here somewhere, I am going to be blown away. And what happened? You had a cardinal story in there. So now you need to tell that.
In Hawaii.
In Hawaii. I know.
I know, right? Who knew there was even cardinals in Hawaii? I had no idea.
Oh.
That was wild. Yeah, it was the same feeling. It was like, because in Oregon there aren't any cardinals, so it was just like, so it was another sort of moment of like, oh. And then I found one that had died. That whole story was crazy.
Yes, right. You did, but there were several.
And I brought
cardinals.
it home, and
Anyway, it's just, it was funny that I actually had it in my head, and that happened because I've gone to retreats too. I went to a retreat once with a bunch of my bereaved mom friends, and before I even got there was a cardinal that would like peck on the window, and it came the whole time we were there, and it would like wake people up and peck on the window, and it got there probably 2 hours before I even got there, this cardinal, and just kept coming back. And then and it's always usually just one cardinal, but then for a while I had 2, a little boy and a little girl cardinal that would come, and that I had another mom on, and that reminded me of her daughter. So I always think of that little girl cardinal being her little daughter Maeve. And so anyway, it's very cool that you had so many animal things, and they all like pretty much happened to me. Not the wolf, obviously, on St. Kitts and Nevis, but the other experiences, the nature ones, seem to happen and like just let me know that I should be reading this book. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a nice echo. It's like, oh, how about that? And then, yeah, because in the book, I was also like, oh, I just saw a pelican. What's a pelican mean?
Right.
And then I'd look up the kind of spiritual meaning of pelican, and then an osprey, and then the dolphins. And then, I mean, it was just like, it was crazy how many different animals kept kind of appearing and feeling like they were, they were emissaries from beyond.
Well, and I do think there are similarities between your son and mine as well. I think back to when Andy was in 2nd grade. I pick him up from school, and he's sobbing. And I said, Andy, honey, what's wrong? And he said, Senora Prindeville, that was his teacher. He was in Spanish immersion school. Senora Prindeville, the other kids were just so mean to her today. And he was just, felt so for Senora Prindeville. I thought, Probably Senor Prindeville did not even think it was that bad of a day. I'm sure she was not that affected by the second graders not being obedient. But he was just so wounded by what he thought was the class not treating her well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it reminded me very much of Hunter and his
Yeah.
empathy towards others. And I thought that's the kind of thing Hunter would have done. Hunter would have gone home in tears to his mom's that, you know, there was an injustice done to one of his teachers or something like that. It felt close. It felt, you know, similar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was another kind of thing that I thought we had in common. But I want you to talk now about this book and kind of what you're doing now, because you're doing a lot now, and that you could see the growth in the book as you wrote it. I felt like, you know, how things kind of changed.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a pretty wild process. So, because I wrote every day and continue to write every day, you know, when I decided to write the book, it was like, I obviously have to go back over it.
Yeah.
Over it again and again and again and again in order to create something that really has a coherent thread. And so what I found is that it's, you know, I continue to write about what's happening right now. And then I kept going back and having to edit. And, you know, this is all raw writing, but editing out things that weren't relevant or, you know, whatever. I had to do the crafting of it. And then deciding like, oh, do I include those letters that I wrote to Hunter when he was little?
Yeah. Which you did.
And I did that. So I had to make the decisions about you know, what gets included, what isn't important, all of that. And, you know, I have probably reread my own story of that first 7 months at least 50 times. I recorded the audio. I had to listen to that like at least 15 times as we were producing it, because I had to keep listening for any things that were glitches or things like that. And, you know, I self-published, and so it's all on me to do those things. I mean, I hired editors for the print book, but for the audiobook, I was the editor of it. And it's been so important to my healing process to continue to hear not only what I wrote, but what Hunter wrote to me. And so, you know, and by that, which, you know, what happened as I was writing letters to him is that I finally had this idea from having talked to a medium who said, you know, you can do automatic writing and you can have him write back to you. And so then it was like, oh, okay. So I just started giving him the keyboard, turning off the lights, dimming the light on the keyboard itself, writing in the dark with my just hands on the keyboard, and just like asking him a question and seeing what showed up. And what I really loved about that process was seeing him evolve. I really felt his growth as he would write to me. It's like he was maturing in the way he spoke to me, in what he was experiencing and what he was sharing with me. And so having to go back and hear it and read it and was really, really part of my healing process. So, so helpful. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'll listen to it and I'll just start sobbing again. You know, it's like, oh yeah, that time with the wolves, or that time when I was just didn't know if I'd ever get out from underneath the covers. Mm-hmm. That in and of itself, I feel like I have quite a few friends now that have lost children, and my two closest friends have lost only children, and they don't have that ability to go back to that story because they didn't record it. They don't have any record of what it was like in day 7, day 25, day 35, you know, all those things. And several of my friends, one of my friends feels hilarious. She's like, yeah, every time you've written a poem and you send it to me, I just give it to the therapist. And I said, it's kind of like that. She's just like, I don't have words for it, but you do.
Yeah.
So I become her sort of I become the voice of her expression that she just can't access in the same way. So yeah. And then the other part about the book that was really fascinating was also having, you know, it has a lot of imagery in it, from the grave decorations, the mandalas, the paintings, and curating all of that was also a big part of the healing process. And looking at the poetry again and just like just remembering where that was while I'm still writing. Like I write a poem every day right now, and I have for the last like 400 days. And so I'm like, oh yeah, but where am I now? And so it's like reflecting on that then and now and then and now. And it's just
Yeah.
such a process.
Well, it's funny because I did some writing, but not a lot. But then I started the podcast, right? And I think it's when we did episode 250. I went back. I had some people on again, kind of where are you now a little bit. And I listened to the episodes, and it was very interesting to hear myself and to hear changes in me. And I hit a big low at 18 months. Very, very low point. I could hear it. Like I was listening to the episode and I thought, when was that? I need to look and see when was that? And that was February of 2020. And like, oh, yep, that's when I was that's at 18 months. And 18 months is when I found myself one day. Like I don't know what had happened. I got very, very upset, and I left the house. I drove to my office, and I laid on the floor in my dark office with nobody around. And I called my friend Stephanie, who was exactly a year further along than me. And I was so bad. And she said, you know, I can't come to you right now. You could drive to me, but she lived like an hour away. And I said, Stephanie, if I get in the car right now, I won't make it. I know I'll drive off the road. And she's like, okay, then we'll just sit here talking. And she just kept talking until I could drive home. And you know, I was doing the podcast then. Like from the outside, I don't think people thought I was that bad at that point.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
She's doing the work. She's in a support group. She's doing the podcast. I think they thought I was okay. I don't think people knew that on that night, it was 18 months, I think exactly. I think it was the 18-month mark exactly. So the 15th of February. That I was so scared to get in the car, I thought I was just going to drive off the road. Like I thought I would have gone to, because I had to go very close to the accident site to get to her house. And I thought, I'm going to make that turn and I'm going to drive off the road right there.
No.
You know, but people don't know.
Well, and that's the thing, like,
they don't know. But it was funny that as I listened to that, I could hear that in my voice. I could hear how dark I was. And then I listened to a later episode and it felt lighter and it sounded lighter. And you could just I could feel how I've changed and how I've progressed. And as you say, I still have really hard days, right? I still have really hard days where I cry and cry and cry. But it's not all the time, and it's not forever, for extended periods.
Yeah. I think that idea that people have no idea what we're really feeling is so, so true. And it was really interesting. I think, the biggest gift of this book for me has been the fact that both of my brothers and my sister-in-law have listened to it, and my older brother has listened to it and read it again. Their responses to me let me know how important it is that they actually have a much more deeper understanding of the nuance and the challenge and the day-to-dayness of grief that they could never know by interacting with me for an hour or two, and that I'm not going to share in most situations, like at dinner, for example, because you just can't, because you're not, you just can't. And so it's been like that, truly, like having my brother say to me, like, he actually wrote to me. My older brother lives here in Amherst, where I live, and that's why I moved here, was to be close to him. And he wrote to me every day after he read a section of it, and he was like, wow, I totally blew it around Thanksgiving. I'm so sorry. Or like he just was like taking it in about what impact that chapter of the book or that section of the book had on him, and was telling me like, he was reflecting on his own children, he was reflecting on his own life or the way he was present or not present for me. And it was like, it was beautiful. And, like if this book doesn't go anywhere else but just to my family and they understand me better,
Yeah.
I feel like it's done its job.
Yeah. Well, and I love you being so honest about things like that. I mean, you had a point in the book where you had written to some friends kind of saying you wish that things could have been better in a certain circumstance where you were, and that you want your relationship to be deeper, right? And that in both ways, actually. It's so funny because I read that letter and I thought, oh, that was beautiful. That was done so well. And the next day, the next entry, which is the next page, was you writing the next day. Well, that was bad. That turned out bad. The friends didn't take it well. Your wife thought, I understand where you came from, but you shouldn't have said it that way. And it's so funny because I had looked at that as being so beautifully done as a grieving person. And yet, and Amy obviously was a grieving person, but I still think just very much got it from your friends, right? Who contacted her and said, they felt very offended by it.
Very. And we lost that friendship completely. We lost the friendship. Those were the only people that I was friends with who knew Hunter when he was born.
Yeah.
And we lost the friendship as well as a whole bunch of community that went along with that group of people. And it was devastating. And we tried to reconnect. I initiated sort of reconciliation and mediation kind of conversations. And nope, not having it. And it was so interesting.
Isn't it funny though that because I was shocked. I was literally shocked that letter triggered that response. It didn't seem like it should have to me. It felt so from such the right place and everything. Is it that we're just so much different, you think, when we're grieving? Or
in this case, what I would say is that my grief collided with her unexpressed grief.
Okay.
And that was really evident. And I think that happens a lot when people in our life haven't grieved their own losses, the things that were really traumatically impactful in their lives. And then like what she was seeing me do before this letter was she was seeing me interact with people on Facebook in a really vulnerable way. And people were really responsive to it. And my story, and it's just my story, but my story is that vulnerability that I was showing was really, and because I was getting so much support and interaction with people around it, she was really envious of that. She didn't know how to do it herself. And so then this letter was like, I guess, adding insult to injury to her, because it made her aware of how it was sort of pointing out like, hey, I actually want you guys to engage with me, say his name.
Yeah.
Talk to me, ask me questions about Hunter.
Right. That's all that the letter was like, please just talk about him. It feels better to talk about him than to not talk about him. It was, and it was, I know that I haven't been there for you in as deep a way as I should have been. It was like very two-way. I thought it was as apologetic as from what you asked for. You were also offering that in the same way and saying, I don't blame you. I was not good at this either. So anyway, it's surprising to me.
But trauma is real, and people's trauma that hasn't been really addressed is just, it clouds reactivity. It does all the things, right? So it's been super painful, and it's propelled me to really look for friends that really understand reciprocity, and that I want friendships where I can say, that didn't land well. Can we talk about it?
Yeah.
Or, hey, this is what would feel good to my heart. Are you willing to listen? Like, do you want to know about that? Because if you don't, like, I don't have time for friends that don't want to deepen in that way, because that's an acquaintance rather than a friend.
Yeah. I really do love it when people write to me and say, I don't know if that was quite the right thing to say, or they're not confident in that. And in those instances, then I can say, you know what, that wasn't quite the right thing to say. This might have been better. But thank you so much for reaching out. And I just feel like that's the beautiful way to handle that is when they are open to, hey, could I have done better with that? Say, yeah, you could have done better. But, right? That's what I love. That's what I love. And that.
Me too. But thank you for noticing. Like, thank you for opening the door.
Yeah.
So that we can talk about it rather than just either feeling crappy or resentful. And then that just creates a wall between us. But I think with grief, I mean, grief is messy, right? And we don't always get what we need when we need it as grieving people. I would say often we don't get what we need when we need it. And we don't know what we need, but we know when it's not right.
Yeah. Right.
It's like, ouch, that didn't feel good.
Right.
I can't tell you what would feel good, but I can tell you that was owie.
Right. Right.
Can we try something else, But a lot of that has to do with safety and our own experience and our own hearts of how much we are invited to share what's happening for us. And that's just a lesson that that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned from grief is people don't need us to be anything. They need us to simply be a witness and to hold space and to invite, but not to insist.
Yes. Yes. I love to, in the book, well, we talked about this in the first time you were on the podcast, actually, is when you went back to work, you wrote an email to your coworkers saying a few things, please try to not do this. And these are a few things that might really help me. And I just thought that was so beautiful. It was beautifully written and beautifully done. And just, have patience with me. If you ask me to do something, I might not hear you. Please give me a follow-up email. I might have to leave a meeting. If I do, it's fine. Don't, I'll let you know if it's something to really worry about. I thought that was great. And we did touch on this last time, but gosh, I just want you to talk about that. And it feels like you shouldn't have to do that. And I understand you shouldn't have to do that, but we do have to do that. We do have to end up educating other people about what we need because we all need something different.
Yeah. And I was brand new to this company. I mean, I was literally supposed to transition to this company with my financial planning firm the day that Hunter died. Yeah. So, I mean, we didn't know each other. I had an immense amount of work to do to transition all these clients. And it was just like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to do this. So it felt like the only way I can really approach this is to just be really candid. And by that, I mean, even 2 weeks after he died, I was so sick of hearing, I'm sorry for your loss. I just wanted to punch people in the face. And I'm not really a violent person, but I was just like, and I was like, why is that expression so irritating to me? And I realized, part of why it's irritating is because it's just a canned response. It's not, oh, I'm so sorry about Hunter, or you must miss him, or something that was more personal. It just feels like, oh, I said my one word, my one sentence, and now I'm good now. Are we good now?
Yeah, right.
I was like, no, we're not good now. That doesn't feel good to me. It feels too... It's like my rant in the book about happy birthday. I'm like, I don't want a happy birthday. I want to get through my birthday. Yeah. I want to just and Hunter's birthday, it's like, it's not a happy birthday for me. It's an honor that I got to birth him. Right. And it's an honor I had 21 years with him, and I want to honor him. But am I happy? No. Do I want to be? No. I just want to feel connected.
No, I mean, it's so funny because we were just talking about this in one of my support groups because I facilitate support group. I landed on it was somebody's child's birthday, and everybody writes these flowery kind of things or whatever, and I just ended up settling on today sucks and I love you.
Exactly. Today sucks and I love you.
Yeah, that's about right. And what's funny is she wrote me back. She had laughed because it was, a funnier, lighter thing than to all the other stuff that she was reading. May you feel, your son closed today, whatever, all this kind of. No, today is just a sucky day. Today is a terrible day, but I love you and I am here for you. And that felt more genuine to me.
Right.
You know, sometimes on people's birthday, I'll say, may you find moments of peace and happiness today. You know, which is all I'm going to hope for on my birthday. I'm not going to hope for a happy birthday, but if I can have a moment with a little bit of peace and happiness, that's all I want, right? So that
Exactly.
and that feels much more genuine than saying just a generic happy birthday, you know?
Well, or people that, like literally, 3 months after Hunter died, they're like, happy birthday, Merry Christmas. I'm just like, what planet do you guys live on? Like,
Yeah.
really? Like, think about it. And one of my friends was just like, Luna, have a birthday. However you want to have a birthday, just have a birthday. And I was like, I love that, because it was just like, you weren't insisting on an emotional quality of that birthday. You're just like,
Yeah.
I'm grateful you were born. You don't have to feel anything in particular on this day. Just,
Yeah. I like that. Have a birthday.
I'm grateful that you arrived here and that you're in my life. And I'm like, that's good. Thank you.
Well, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So many pieces.
So many pieces. Okay, I wanted
Yeah, and you asked me.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Oh, you had said you kind of wanted to know where I was at now in this journey. Because my writing has, I continue to write daily and do a lot of.
Right, and the book is the first 7 months, but now
First
you
7
are
months.
5 plus years.
5 years in, yeah. So I'm working on. I'm at the beginning stages of another book that's going to be a continuation, but done in a different format. I don't know exactly what it'll look like at the moment, but it's sort of evolving, and I really I like the idea, and it was important to me in Look Mom that people got a sense of chronology. That was really. It was like, it's not the thing you do in memoir, so to speak. Like, chronology is like poo-pooed. And I was like, yeah, no. But in a grief journey,
Oh, it's super important. Yeah, it is.
it felt really important for somebody to be able to look at that and say, it's only been a month, or it's been 3 months, and you're writing this, or you're feeling this. And I wanted other grieving parents to have a reference point of like, did you feel that 4 years later or only 2 weeks after he died? And so, that the chronology of the poetry, of the imagery, of all of the things, like there was just this sense of like, this is how it evolved and unfolded for me. That's going to be different for everybody. So to be going forward with a new book, I'm trying to figure out, like, does it still need to have that chronology in order for people to get that sense of like, oh, this is what it feels like a year out? Because, often we're told like the first year sucks, the second year can be harder. And one of the things that I recognized about that second year being harder is that the shock of the death of your child starts to wear off. And then you're feeling things like, I remember I've talked to you and mentioned that I've done psychedelic journeys, and now I'm a psychedelic guide. And part of what that's been valuable for is that it has given me the space to go back to the places that were super hard, like the burial, the sitting Shiva, which is the Jewish ritual of sitting with your community for 7 days, which was excruciating, and going back there without the covering of shock to let myself feel what I was feeling at that time. And it's hard work, but not do that work to me felt like I would be stuck, or I would have that trauma stuck in my body, and I didn't want that. And so using something like ketamine to help it really just helps you deepen past those places that don't want to go there. That are like, yeah, we're good. Let's not. And I'm like, yeah, no, actually, I do want to feel it all. And I know that feeling it all is how I metabolize the experience.
Well, and that sounds a lot like when I'm doing the EMDR that I've done, because that's...
Exactly. It's very similar.
I mean, it had to be done, especially initially, it had to be done. I had to drive a car again. right? I had
Right.
to get to our cottage up north, which is honestly was Andy's happy place, the place that I really feel him there. I love going there, but the only way to go there is to go past the accident site. And initially
Ugh.
we would have to pull off the road because I would throw up when I had to drive past the accident
Oh,
site. But EMDR,
of course you would.
as painful and horrible as it was, and as much as I hated pretty much every time I had to do it, it was necessary in order to
Mm-hmm.
kind of get through those layers and get through that and be able to not, feel sick to my stomach when I had to drive past.
Yeah.
It's hard work.
Yeah, you're rewiring. You're allowing your yeah. I mean, I really think of it as EMDR is a technique for metabolizing
Yeah.
trauma, as is
Yeah.
somatic work
Yeah.
and psychedelic work. All of these things are just helping you to titrate the trauma in bite-sized pieces so that you can actually let the feeling emerge and then dissipate. And it's such a powerful tool. And yeah, we do. We have to keep functioning. And so to keep functioning, we have to let ourselves really move through those things. You can't really, if you don't feel them, they're going to show up in another way.
Mhm.
They're going to come up as illness. A lot of times, I think a lot of chronic illness is really unexpressed trauma, or it's unexpressed trauma becomes a catalyst for illness, I guess is a better way to say it.
I've definitely known people that have had significant illness after their child dies, and I think it's related.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like we can't express it. What do we do? And it's not conscious. It's just that it lowers our immune system. It compromises everything about the way our bodies function. So
I wanted to mention one thing in your book that it really touched me, and you're going to think that's a really tiny thing, but for me that it was huge. Is just one of your letters that you wrote, and it was on January 31st. So it was, let's say, April, September, October, November, 4 months in. You signed the letter, "Love, your devastated, aching, flailing, vulnerable, wrecked, and resilient mama." And it's very funny that phrase hit me so hard that I had to highlight it, because I just thought, that is just beautiful. You had all of those just devastatingly horrible emotions that you kind of were feeling, but then you ended, "and resilient mama." Beautiful. Just beautiful. See, do you even remember that part of it? I don't know.
Oh yeah. Because I didn't sign any other letter like that.
You didn't. That was the only one you signed like that.
It was that one letter.
That was the only one. And it was just so, so beautiful. So anyway, we probably should be starting to wrap up. I had a few other points that I wanted to talk about, a little bit about lessons that you learned and things. But what I really want you to end with is a poem. So as you go further in the book, poetry started, right? You didn't start out writing poems, but you started midway through the book. I think you started your first poem, and now you say you write poems every single day. And this poem was written really from Hunter's perspective, and it's how you end the book. And I think it's absolutely beautiful. This was written one day before the 7-month anniversary of Hunter's death. And I would absolutely love for you to read that.
You got it. This poem is called Signs. In a sudden rush of light and air, I was no longer tethered to earth. I reached for you. I was there as you wept over me. I held your hand. I kissed your cheek. I said, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." You couldn't hear me. You were deaf with grief. Slowly, I swallowed the truth. I no longer had hands. I would have to find another way to reach you. I hovered inches from your face, wings beating at the speed of light, then circled your head 3 times, knowing you would know it was me. as you flew across the ocean seeking tropical refuge. I struck a pose in the sky, a spectrum of color that started on one cloud and ended on the next. I've given you rainbows in Key West, Sedona, Kona, Jamaica, even made a few doubles. And how did you like that heart I made for you at 30,000 feet? Sometimes I wait patiently for you to sense my presence. Other times I send you walking or put a poem in your hands, or I wrap myself around you just before you slip into the underworld. Missed signs are rare, your eyes keen for winged ones and other messengers of wonder. I am teaching you to follow breadcrumbs, feathers, sand dollars placed in your path. And you teach me to fly.
It's just beautiful. It's beautiful. So, as we close up here, I do want you to talk about how people can find you and follow you and how they can get the book. And you probably should explain the title of the book, because I did skip over that, because that's a really beautiful story too.
So the book is called Look, Mom, I Can Fly, Notes from the Wide Skies of Grieving My Only Child. And it's called Look, Mom, I Can Fly because the day after he died, I was just sitting in his room going through his dresser drawer. He had just come back from a trip. And I found this brand new t-shirt. And the t-shirt was a white t-shirt with black lettering. And it said, Look, Mom, I Can Fly. And I picked it up and I just burst into tears. And I was like, it just was like, oh, that was for me. I was the one who found it. And it just felt like a message.
Yeah.
For me. And I started wearing it. And I don't know, it must have been another month later or sometime. It was a while down the way. I was like, what is this shirt from? And I Googled it. And it turns out that it's a Travis Scott tour that was called Look, Mom, I Can Fly. And the date of the tour was the date that Hunter died. And it was just crazy. It's like YouTube video. It said, Travis Scott, Look, Mom, I Can Fly, August 28th. And I was just like, ugh. So I feel like it just felt like, well, of course that needs to be the name of the book. Mm-hmm. And the image, I kept thinking like, what's the image on the cover? And I just felt like Icarus was sort of that idea of this being trying to fly and getting too close to the sun and the wings melting. Like that just felt like an image that felt kind of appropriate for what he was like. Yeah. So my website is lunajaffe.com, and all the information about how to get the book, it's available on Kindle and audiobook and print book. I think they're really different experiences. I just want to say that listening to the book it's full of music that really moved me, worked with me, lived inside of me as I was grieving. And I highly recommend it because part of what the music does is it gives you an emotional break to really feel how you're being impacted by the story. Mm-hmm. And then all the poems have music behind them. So there's a sense of, it's just a real rich experience to listen to the book.
Which I sort of wish I had done now. Actually, I could have done that because I was traveling.
But I don't want anybody to just listen.
Right, because there are great pictures in here too.
See the images.
I know.
Yeah. So on my website, if I have a big gallery there of all the images I created of the grave decorations and the mandalas and the paintings. And so there's a lot there. And then there's poetry and there's resources. There's books that have really been meaning to me and music. And so there's all kinds of things out there. So my website's the best resource. And it's available through all major outlets.
Yeah. Well, thank you again so much for sharing Hunter with us again today. Like I said, I think about you often. So it is really nice to know what you've been doing now. And since we last met and how we've both kind of changed in this time, I would say. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've both been impacted. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. If you found this helpful and would like to support the podcast, please leave a 5-star rating and comment. To help financially, you can type Andy's Mom, one word, to the number 53555. This provides a link to GiveButter, which allows donations through PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay, or credit cards. GiveButter will provide a receipt of your tax-deductible donation, or you can visit the donation page at andysmom.com/donate. Always Andy's Mom is a registered 501c3 and can receive donations through Thrivent Financial and Benevity. Marcy loves hearing from listeners. Please feel free to reach out to her via email at marcy@andysmom.com or on the Instagram or Facebook Always Andy's Mom accounts. Sign up for the email list to get weekly episode links as well as pictures of Marcy's guests and their children. Together, let's work to inspire hope, one day at a time.